Hi guys, it's Kremp again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With the CDL rosters finally getting locked in for next season, Ghosty is now giving his perspective on what he expects these other rosters to be looking like when they finally hit the server. Ghosty, of course, linked to that Gentlemate roster for next year. But what about FaZe? What about Thieves? What about these other teams? Can they potentially compete with the reigning world champions and World Cup winners in OpTic Texas? Do they have what it takes? Ghosty reckons many of these teams are kind of weird in terms of their overall composition. Very much intro to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. A couple of things I wanted to start with here. So DensJT puts out a few interesting points on the state of the CDL right now and some of the ideas that could be considered to change in the upcoming year. Of course, Den's Australian former pro player, was the top guy at Boston for a little while. Now he's working for the Falcons as one of their top guys in operations. So, he knows a thing or two about competitive Call of Duty, played at a very high level, obviously during his career and even most recently as well. And he gives some thoughts on, from his perspective, certainly behind the scenes, on things that they could consider, because coaches are definitely an interesting one. We saw the other day, Karma reveals that the players not particularly keen on getting the coaches onto the stage, and maybe as a result of that, and maybe for other reasons, the CDL has elected not to do so, despite it working at the World Cup, you would argue. So, look, Den says this: current situation, coaches are limited to out-of-game support roles, no real-time impact on gameplay beyond prep and between maps. The problem is coaches are critical to team success, yet their presence is invisible during broadcasts and under-leveraged in storytelling. So propose solutions. You test this coach integration during the CDL. This is the frustrating thing to me, is it's like, I think many would agree after the Esports World Cup, it's worth at least trying it, right? Put the coaches on the stage, see how it goes in, for league matches, maybe run it for one major cycle, get more feedback, because they only played with it at the World Cup for 1 weekend. So, experiment with it, right? Throw something in there. What's the harm in that? It's a good argument. We saw it at the World Cup. I think most people agreed it was at least positive enough to give it some, intention, basically. Feature coaches more prominently on broadcasts, search and destroy coach inclusion to map strategy, extend the countdown time. So there are some few ideas there. He also gave some thoughts on the gentleman's agreements, the way that things currently are, the fact that the players have disproportionate control. I like that Dens agrees with me on this, because obviously he was a player, but I think it is definitely our perception as a community that the players have too much power when it comes to stuff like this. And look, if I was a player, I'd be saying the same thing the players are, because why would I not want to have the power to control the way that the game should be played? Given that the players do have the power to GA and kind of do what they want, then of course they're going to try to keep hold of it. But everyone knows that these decisions are often made with the best intentions of that team in play, rather than of the game and of the community and of the experience in general, which, as Den says, is understandable because careers are on the line. But yeah, he comes up with a few solutions: ban or protect, or just reduce the impact of GAs with a formalized committee. I think what I like, though, is this idea on the championship format and some changes there, because the current championship format is relatively dull, let's be honest, right? Now it's better because the majors are weighted more heavily than online. But, okay, you win a match, you get 10 points. Great. You go to a major, you win, you get 100, you come second, you get 75. It's like, okay, whatever, we've seen it all before. The idea that, has been introduced in Valorant, for example, and also is proposed here by Dens, is maybe those points could be, let's say, accelerated as the season goes on. So in Valorant, stage 2 points are more important than stage 1. You simply accrue more points based on your results in stage 2 than stage 1. So it weights the season more towards the latter events. So if you're good at the end of the year, nearer the World Championship, that is weighted more. It also means that the storylines are more open, right? So if you're a bad team, you really struggled at the start of the season, but you're finally putting things together, it actually means that you probably still have a chance to actually make it, because your points are given a multiplier towards the end of the season when things get more serious. His idea is that each major as it goes on awards more points towards the World Championship, ensuring recency and performance are better rewarded. Guarantee major winners a champ spot, with remaining teams based on total points. LCQ or play-ins between the bottom 6 teams leading up to champs, and this allows the season to be full of surprises, something to play for every week. And I think I totally agree with trying to change some of these ideas. the idea of guaranteeing a major winner a champ spot seems kind of like a no-brainer in a way, because I don't think at any time over the last few years that would have changed anything. I don't think there's ever been a major winner that hasn't made it to champs. So it more than likely wouldn't change anything, but it would just add a whole new level of storyline. Yeah, you might be Falcons, you might be way off the pace, you might have literally zero chance to make it to champs even if you score the 100 points by winning the tournament, but if you were to win and therefore guarantee a spot, because that was the rule, then until they're eliminated, it still keeps the storylines alive to a certain extent. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer. The one thing I would add to that is I wonder whether there's an argument to say if you win a major, you are guaranteed one of the top seeds for champs. Because, okay, let's say hypothetically Falcons won Major 4 this season and they qualified based on being given a spot by winning, which I think is probably a fair way to do it. Like, if you win a major, you probably should feature at champs, even if you were just horrific for the rest of the season. The argument might be, let's say you are a major winner, you should be guaranteed one of the top seeds. The reason why I say this is because in most scenarios, let's say there's a team in 9th or 10th in the standings, they then win the major, they're probably, almost certainly going to make it to champs anyway on just the 100 points they're going to accrue. Like, that would be enough for them to make champs, but they'll still make it as the 8th or the 7th seed, right? But if, let's say you win a major, and all of the major winners get the top seeds, and then the seeding is done based on points. So let's say FaZe won an event and they were the #1 team in standings, they would get the 1st seed for champs. Thieves won an event, they were the 2nd seed in standings, they get the 2nd seed. OpTic win an event, they become the 3rd seed if they have the 3rd most points. But let's say in this hypothetical world, Falcons having won the final major with the 4th most points, they actually get the 4th seed. So, you know, I don't know, it's just something to think about. Probably not massively relevant, but I think it's one idea anyway to keep things kind of spicy going into the final event of the season. Everyone knows the interest towards the final couple of events does fall off to an extent, so just a few ideas. He talks about challenges being 16 years old. Another just absolute no-brainer decisions like that, but there was some reason not happening. So anyway, those are just a few ideas for you guys to ponder what you want the CDL to look like. Let's talk about some of the roster stuff. Here is Scrappy, his career card so far, and he's played 19 events total. His average placing is a 4.26, so pretty close to a 4.23, but not quite. Series win-loss, 70%, 7 finals appearances, 4 event wins. But of course, well, one of those was at the World Championship, best champs placing 2nds, but not yet quite won yet. So yeah, he's on Thieves. He is set to stay on Thieves, of course, for the upcoming season. But one of the questions is, and as of recording this video, I'm busy this evening, so if the Thieves team has been confirmed as Kenny, Scrap, aBeZy, HyDra, we'll talk about it in detail tomorrow. But like, this has been expected anyway for some time. The question is, with this roster, is it going to be good enough, right? I think nobody is going to have too many questions about aBeZy joining here, right? aBeZy and HyDra on paper, that's like, wow, that is potentially a serious duo. Nobody's got any questions about Scrap's ability. Of course, there are questions on, let's say, his performances at the World Championships over the last couple of years, and maybe that's where Kenny comes in to a certain extent as well, to help that team get over the line in those bigger moments, certainly towards the end of the year. Is this team a threat? Absolutely, they're a threat. But if you're an OpTic fan, you know, how worried should you be? CDL Pal says, like, green demons, you know, we're not moved, right? Like, you know, this team ain't doing all that to next season. But Ghosty gives a few interesting perspectives on it. So we sat down with Attach for an episode of the Stay Attached podcast. I'll leave a link down below if you guys want to go and check it out. They cover an awful lot of ground. But towards the end, they're talking about these rosters and who's going to be good, who's going to be bad, but also mainly just these teams looking a little bit strange on paper. I think if we look at the rosters that are getting formed for next season, they wouldn't have precisely been the ones that we expected. Is it a massive surprise to see that at least some of the Surge guys have ended up on FaZe? No, not really. Like, I expected the FaZe guys to break up, and it's, you know, understandable that if Cellium was to go, Abuzah made sense as a target to go and get. I think there would have been some questions on whether Neptune could have been an option there as well. But I think on paper, the idea of Surge players ending up on FaZe, it's not crazy remarkable. But when you look at it from the outside looking in, it does feel like these rosters are a little bit weird, a little bit strange than we might have expected going into this offseason.
Simp and aBeZy stay together till their careers finish, or Simp and Cellium stay together till their careers finish. But like, all 3 of them, selfishly, I think it's good for like content for everyone, because like, people are going to support Simp, then they're going to support aBeZy, then they're going to go support Cell. So it's like cool to see like what's going to happen throughout their careers, the different trajectories they take.
Storylines that pit against each other, 100%.
Yeah, but like to actually see them break up is like crazy.
Yeah, agree. Definitely agree with that. I thought Tyler and Chris, Simp and aBeZy were gonna stay together forever. So
yeah,
they're not. Yeah, they're gone.
They are. They're gone. And is there any rumored roster that you see like, oh, that team's kind of nice? Like, is it what do you think about these rumored, of course, FaZe team where it's like the 04, Abuzah, Drazah, Simp. Then you have the of course the LAT roster where it's like Kenny, aBeZy.
I think a lot of the rosters are surprising.
Yeah.
But I feel like that gets said every year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that's the only way to put it. I feel like a lot of the rosters are surprising.
Yeah. Like it's just like weird mixes for sure.
Yeah, it's just weird mixes. Exactly. Like you're expecting certain people to get picked up at certain places, and then something else completely happens. And you're like, I don't know if that's bad per se, but it's just different to what you're expecting.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only way to put it, because there's no way to like say it's bad or good, even on paper, till we kind of see how the year is going to be. Obviously, like if they're picking up some absolute burgers or some challenger players that like have no proven anything,
yeah,
then it's a different story. I can be like, yeah, it's probably a terrible change. But it's not like they're picking up, like I said, absolute burgers. So you have to kind of wait and see. But it's definitely not like the expected roster moves for some of the teams, at least leaking wise. I don't think it's what I expected.
No, yeah, it's crazy to see. But then like on paper, like a lot of people are saying FaZe on paper, for example. But when you lose players like Cellium and aBeZy, like it's gonna be tough to find teams on paper to like match those names on paper. So it's like but who knows how they actually play? Maybe the new FaZe team comes out and dominates next year. Like they have such good synergy on the map, chemistry, and it works out great. So you just never really know.
So should OpTic be concerned for the upcoming season? I think the first thing to note is that it's so incredibly difficult to stay at the top. Like that is the first thing. They've now won champs 2 consecutive years. Winning it for a 3rd consecutive year would be a truly astonishing accomplishment. And if they were to achieve that, I don't expect OpTic will do so by being dominant all season, right? I think the fact that they were terrible for a lot of last year, it's not like it helps them win champs at all. Like that would be like, that's not the way that it really works. But it is true that Thieves, when they got really good last year, Major 3, Major 4, it does become more difficult to maintain that. And as soon as you start losing a little bit of a step to some of your rivals, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, maybe we're not that team anymore. And like questions internally start to be raised. I think the same thing happened with FaZe last year, right? So inevitably those teams had to blow up. And for OpTic's perspective, look, if you're an OpTic fan, you've got to accept the fact that there's a very good chance that you won't win champs next year, and it is what it is. But I think as an OpTic fan, you'll definitely take that, given the way the last couple of years have gone. But still, they were the best team at the end of last season by quite some margin, I would say, right? I mean, Surge were close at the end of the year, but of course, Surge are no longer anywhere near a thing. And, I mean, we don't even know what they're doing. There are rumors that they might be looking to pick up that entire Omit team that ended up doing a pretty good job at the World Cup and knocking FaZe out. Let's not forget. And pretty much calling an end to their time as an organization, or well, as a team, but certainly as an organization as well. They've now got over to Vegas, as we know. So OpTic will just have to keep doing their thing. The scary thing is that Mercules has only played a few events. Like on paper, he should only get a little bit better with time. So I think we'll talk more in due course about whether OpTic, like how likely it is that they maintain some of that dominance going into next year's game. But looking at these other teams, their threats OpTic last year came, from Surge at a time, also from, of course, FaZe and Thieves were very competitive last year. But if we look up and down the league, have Heretics got stronger? I would say no. I mean, we understand, Snoopy's not going to be there. We think it's going to be Trake. Well, it is Trakes, and we're pretty sure that Metals is going to stay as well. So Super Rankle, Trakes and Metals minus Rael plus Trakes is the team getting better with that. You probably wouldn't argue so. Toronto then are going to get Rael instead, but who's their, AR going to be? They're still, since Scrap obviously left and with no Envoy, there are some questions. The Gentamates team looks pretty interesting for sure, but again, that's Ghosty's team. That to me, okay, high ceiling, but again, there are some questions about the personalities, I would say there. And I think this is one of the key interesting things, because certainly I wouldn't have expected these players to end up together on Gentamates, right? I'd have thought maybe Neptune could have gone to FaZe. I thought there was a decent chance that Envoy could have stayed on Thieves. That's not happened. I expected Simp to end up on Falcons. That's not happened. So, you know, there are a number of things I think Ghosty's right to say, yeah, some of these seems kind of strange. Doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be good because, yeah, maybe Surge aren't the threat they're going to be last year. Maybe Heretics aren't quite the threat that they were at a time. Maybe FaZe aren't even as good, but I mean, yeah, that Thieves team still looks pretty deadly to me. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Just one final thing, if you guys haven't seen this video yet, you probably have, but it was a pretty good one. Dashy tried to go undercover with Encourage. Encourage, also notable player, former Stallions member. There was a bit of drama with him last season, and yeah, Dashy goes undercover to try and pretend that he's not all that good and get some coaching before eventually getting exposed. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.